let's talk, sticking with the theme of broadcasting, if you will. Let's talk to Arkil Ahmed, former BBC executive. First of all, about let's talk about the licence fee story, first of all. Because apparently the BBC sent out an ominous letter to UK households threatening to send TV licence enforcement officers to people's homes on Christmas Day for not paying the annual fee. That's a bit mad, isn't it, Arkil? I mean, if you're going to sort of, say we're going to send enforcement officers, you wouldn't say, we're going to do it on Christmas Day. But it may be on the 25th of December or another day. You could be prosecuted if you're caught watching, recorded or downloading TV programmes illegally on live TV or BBC iPlayer. I mean, that is the definition of Scrooge.
Yeah, the funny thing is, my son got that letter actually because he's in university. Yeah, and I said to him, I said, don't worry about it. But actually, that's the irony of all it. You've got, look, the licence fee collecting people, they've got to send out a letter, but that was a massive mistake. I think they've already apologised, haven't they? I mean, you're right. I mean, whatever spin you want to put on this, it's not positive. It's a nightmare, isn't it? The fact of the matter is, you've got to send out letters about people if they've not got a licence fee, and there was a licence fee previously at that address. But you don't say, are you going to be in on Christmas Day? And we may come round. And I think, I don't know what, in these situations where we always used to joke about it and say deputy heads will roll. I'm not saying that somebody's going to lose their job over it. I'm not going to say that at all, but I think someone's going to be in a very, very on the naughty step for quite some time.
That was a
I've been okayed that letter to go out. Yeah,
ridiculous, isn't it?
It's ridiculous.
Also, I bet
you can't defend it in any shape or form, can you? Really?
Enforcement officers probably don't even work on Christmas Day, so it's live.
No, they don't.
Well.
They don't.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, they're not drawing. I mean, I've actually been out licensed when I was an executive. I actually went out licence fee collecting a few
Did
times.
You?
Yeah. I found myself sat next to the head of a licence fee collecting at some meeting, and I ended up just saying, I'd like to go out. And the next thing, I went out 2 or 3 times. And it is interesting, fascinating when you talk to people from different... So I went across different socio-economic groups and talked to them. And it is really interesting who pays and who doesn't pay and why they pay and why they don't pay. And it's a vast variety of different reasons. But it's important, I always felt it was important to go out there to understand this is where the money that you get, how you should spend it wisely.
So it's a bit like that programme, sort of Secret Boss or Undercover Boss, whatever it's called. It's an undercover BBC exec masking himself.
No. We were always introduced. They always say, "Oh, by the way," and then people would then give you one hell of a rant. And I remember I went out once in the middle of that whole kind of Jonathan Ross kind of fiasco with, and it was terrible. People were just, and I said I can't justify it because I agree with you. It was a horrible thing that happened. But the fact is, licence fee collecting is not something that people, it's not as scary as it sounds. And most of the times that I went out, the people were actually working with people to say to them, to help them to actually pay rather than to criminalise them.
Let's talk now about the fact that Patricia Hidalgo, I don't know how one pronounces her name, but we'll go for Hidalgo, Director of Children's and Education at the BBC, has raised concerns about decline in programming for young people on commercial channels and streaming services. She says, despite our continued efforts, the broader children's media landscape is in decline. Without wider intervention, we risk losing a generation's connection to British culture and storytelling. This might seem like a small thing, but when people think about their upbringing, the first thing you think about is the programmes you watched on telly, and they do have a massive impact. They really do shape, I think, your development, shape sort of your attitudes towards the world. They're necessarily educational. I think especially when more and more parents go out to work or might be busy, they work longer hours, they come home, they're cooking dinner. A lot of parents will, sit a kid in front of a TV. I mean, the Americans were up in arms at one point because all their kids started developing British accents from watching Peppa Pig. But, it is something that is largely overlooked. What's your view on all of this? Should when it comes to the licence fee and the things it be affording, more be directed into, say, children's programming as part of a public service?
Well, I think it's less about the licence fee. That's the argument, because actually you're right. You could argue more money should be spent. No, the bigger question is this, that ITV, Channel 5, etc., they do less children's programming now because there's no return in it for them commercially, because you can't advertise certain particular products during children's programming, with it high fat, sugar, salt, etc., whatever, all of these kind of things. So the fact of the matter is there's less programming being made. And what they're saying is that you've got CBBC doing what it does, CBBC. So there is money being spent, but the fact of the matter is you can't compete with the American programming that we're seeing on Netflix and all the other kind of streamers. And so this is actually quite a nuanced conversation. What she's saying is, this isn't just the BBC. Everybody needs to be doing children's programming, and we need to change the system to enable that to happen. Now, I agree with you. There could be an argument that says, well, what's the license fee for? If it's for public service broadcasting, this is an important thing, actually getting a generation of children to engage with public service broadcasting and British values from these programmes. So should some of the license fee be contestable for other broadcasters to be able to say, we will spend it in this area? Now, they've tried that with children's in the past. They're not to say that they shouldn't try it again, and I think they should do, because I think it's essential. We've all, if you're a parent, we've all lived through it. And I remember lecturing my kids at times saying, hey, this isn't Disney Channel, you can't talk to your parents like that. Because some of the kind of like the funny asides that they would make and say, hey. And I used to use the Disney Channel because it was 10, 15 years ago when I was talking to my kids at that age. But it's I actually think it's a very brave statement that's been made.
Although, I think a lot of people, I can hear them screaming right now at their radios or screens saying, we don't trust the BBC to be the guardians, the custodians of British culture. Before I let you go... I think
that's what she's saying, though, that we shouldn't just be the custodians.
Right,
Everybody else should be doing it as well.
In fact, I don't trust most people in media to be the custodians of British culture. Sell it up the river. Before I let you go, Arkil, what did you watch? What was your sort of favourite kids' programme when you were growing up? What's the one that really impacted you that you remember?
That's a really good question. Like a lot of people, is it Why Don't You? Remember that show, Is It Why Don't You?
Yeah.
In the summer holidays. And I used to always think of these people as being like really posh, the kids. And every now and then they'd have somebody on there. And then Grange Hill. I'm of that generation. I was at high school probably when Grange Hill started as well. And in my high school was nothing like Grange Hill, but I really wanted to be in Grange Hill, but I probably would have been picked on in Grange Hill. And so, so Grange Hill, Why Don't You? And then of course, Swap Shop. Swap Shop was a great show. I was, where I grew up, it was either Swap Shop or Tiz was, right? And I was more of a Swap Shop boy, I'm afraid. It probably says quite a lot about me.
That's before my time, Swap Shop and Tiz was, I'm afraid. But Grange Hill had some really important impacts, though, didn't it? Because it did bring narratives to kids. I was listening to something the other day, and someone was saying that storyline where that kid became a drug addict or whatever actually did have a lot of kids who watched Grange Hill running scared for the rest of their lives about taking drugs. So it does actually...
even on a hit single, like Just Say No.
Just Say No,
It was a hit single based on that. It was Zammo, that's what he was called.
Zammo, yeah. And Blue Peter, of course. I remember when I was at school, it was all about that blimmin' Tracy Island. Everyone's parents, like, for God's sakes, I've got to, make papier-mâché and get all this rubbish stuff and plants for that blimmin' thing. Everyone was making Tracy Island. Yeah. Or I remember as well, people burying things in their garden for the millennium.
Yes,
those
they
little
did, didn't they?
Memory pods, or what are they called?
Time capsules.
Time capsules, yeah. I bet now there's someone that's listening to this going, oh my God, I did that. I'm going to go find it. I forgot all about that. And then they'll unearth some sort of cassette of New Kids on the Block and Lord knows what.
No. Yeah, episode of Crackerjack, that's what you needed. That's how old I am.
See, I liked the niche stuff. Trapdoor was brilliant with Burke and Boney. That was genius. Anyway, we could talk about this all day, but unfortunately we've got to go to an advert break. Arkil, thank you ever so much for coming on.